Listen, I want to dive straight into a genuinely fascinating phenomenon happening right now with a major, massive superhero film. Just think about this for a second. Usually, when we're gearing up for a highly anticipated comic book movie, our expectations are set on the core pillars of the story. We expect to be talking about the hero's personal struggles, the menacing presence of their upcoming villains, and that deep emotional arc that's going to carry them from the opening credits all the way to the final fade out, right? A superhero story should be completely 100% driven by the journey of its lead character. And yet, almost every single conversation, every forum post, every single debate online regarding this particular film just keeps circling back to an absolute obsession over a single, totally unknown casting role. The strangest, most perplexing thing about this movie right now is that the biggest mystery we are all talking about isn't the hero at all. So ask yourselves, how did we get here? How did we get to a point where a lead character's entire cinematic journey is completely overshadowed by one massive manufactured question mark? Now, studios hiding plot twists, surprise cameos, or villain reveals, that's totally normal. We expect that. That's just part of the theatrical experience. But this feels completely different. It's as if the fundamental balance of the movie has inverted entirely. I really want to break down how a multi-million-dollar narrative gets completely sidelined by a secret. You know what's happening when the audience's focus shifts so drastically that we start seeing these teaser trailers getting overanalyzed, frame by frame, purely for background clues about this secret character, completely ignoring the actual emotional plot being presented right there on the screen. I've seen this happen before, for sure, but modern movie marketing has truly mastered the art of weaponizing silence. The marketing campaign here has quietly placed this giant spotlight on a single unknown role, and in doing so, it has effectively hijacked the film's narrative. When a studio deliberately hides details, they know exactly how the internet echo chamber is going to react. They rely on those playful, knowing smiles during press tours. You know the ones. They give intentionally vague, evasive interview answers to journalists. They know that by holding back just a tiny fraction of the truth, a totally normal supporting role becomes an uncontrollable fan obsession. It starts to feel like this massive interactive puzzle that the studio desperately wants us to solve. And before anyone even realizes what's happened, the audience is no longer waiting to experience the hero's story. They are literally just waiting for a reveal. All right, let's move into section 1, the snowball of secrecy, and how this hype actually gets built. I want to break down exactly how this simple casting announcement slowly morphed into a runaway hype train. Because let's be real, this didn't happen overnight. It was a snowball effect that started with something completely ordinary. We really need to understand this core concept. Secrecy creates value where none existed before. At first, we literally just saw a talented young actress added to the cast list, and the reaction was great. People respected her talent. They thought, hey, she'll be a nice addition to the ensemble. But then, her character name was never confirmed. Questions about her were carefully avoided by the director. And that intentional silence turned ordinary, everyday casting information into buried treasure. Look, humans are naturally wired to fill in the blanks, and we almost always fill them with the most exciting, bombastic possibilities our minds can conjure up. So a character who might have entered the film quietly suddenly became the absolute center of attention simply because nobody was allowed to know who she was. And then, the release schedule shifted. Look at how this timeline shift affects things. Project A moves over here, Project B shifts its position to next year, and suddenly, the existing timelines that fans used to explain certain characters just no longer worked. This is where the theory machine truly exploded. Fans began to connect totally invisible dots. You've seen it. When a movie gets delayed, the fandom suddenly convinces itself that schedule changes must equal massive narrative rewrites. This logistical disruption forced fans to rebuild their assumptions from the ground up. New connections appeared overnight, and the sudden, unearned certainty emerged from absolute uncertainty. The fandom became absolutely convinced that the reason for the delay and the reason for the secret meant this hidden character must serve some massive, universe-altering purpose. And that brings us to what I call the mystery box trap. This is the exact point where a character's imagined significance becomes far more important than their actual identity. This is the moment the trap just snapped shut on us. We completely stopped guessing who she was, and we started demanding that she be the most important piece of the entire cinematic universe. I want you to really picture what that spiral looks like in a modern fandom. Normal, manageable expectations just vanish. In their place, this checklist of impossible, universe-breaking demands emerges, and the fandom preemptively decides the movie absolutely must meet these demands to be considered good. The mystery stops being a fun little marketing tool and starts spiraling completely out of control. Let's transition into Section 2, the danger of imagination in the wild world of unchecked theories. Now, speculation is fun. It really is. I do it. We all do it. It lets us participate in the story before it even arrives in theaters. But there's a massive hidden danger when we let our minds run entirely unchecked. Consider this thought right here. Imagination rarely loses gracefully. The fundamental problem with letting the audience fill in the blanks is that our imagination has absolutely no constraints. It doesn't have a massive Hollywood budget it has to stick to. It has no strict 2-hour runtime limits, no studio mandates, and absolutely zero reality checks. I've realized over the years that when reality finally arrives in the theater, it often feels incredibly small, simply because the fantasy we built in our heads had unlimited room to grow, mutate, and become this perfect, impossible epic. As these theories wildly multiply online, we start seeing ideas that would completely derail a normal script. We're talking about everything from shape-shifting alien invaders secretly observing from the shadows, to time-traveling future spider-themed successors dropping out of the sky into the second act. We completely stop asking what is logically likely to fit into a tight 2-hour script. We just crave the biggest surprise imaginable. But I always ask this crucial grounding question. Does this theory serve the movie, or does it only serve excitement? Because guys, sometimes those are two very, very different things. Shoving a shape-shifting alien into a deeply personal character drama might sound incredibly exciting on a message board, but it would completely bloat and absolutely ruin the actual film we're sitting down to watch. Which brings us to section 3, the omega level problem, and how clashing tones can ruin a film. Let me explain why the most popular theory floating around right now perfectly illustrates this dangerous disconnect. The crucial point here is understanding the clash between what the movie actually is and what fans want the reveal to be. We have a grounded, street-level narrative facing off against theories of universe-shaking cosmic consequences. The filmmakers have explicitly, repeatedly promised us a grounded adventure here. Let's really dissect what that means for this specific hero. A grounded story means grit. It means focusing on paying rent, dealing with local street crime, emotional stakes, everyday struggles, and the hero's personal, messy life. The vibe we were promised is distinctly intimate. It is not one involving massive mutant empires or cosmic space gods. So ask yourselves this from a purely structural screenwriting standpoint. How do you place an enormously powerful omega-level mutant into a grounded story without completely destroying the tone? Spoiler alert, you really can't. Walk through a hypothetical scenario with me. Imagine if, halfway through a gritty story about our hero fighting local muggers and dealing with profound personal grief, a literal godlike entity capable of reshaping reality suddenly drops into the second act. The camera, the script, and the audience's attention would instantly abandon the protagonist. The entire movie just stops being about the hero's personal journey. From that moment on, everything revolves entirely around the newcomer, and it completely ruins the point of the story the filmmakers originally set out to tell. Now for section 4, the nostalgia trap, the battle between past and present. Now, you might be sitting there arguing that this kind of extreme secrecy has worked beautifully before, and hey, you'd be totally right. But I need to point out an absolutely critical difference here. When beloved legacy characters were hidden in the past and then revealed to thunderous cheering applause in theaters, it was a genuine cultural event. But those previous secrets succeeded because they relied on decades of history, emotional attachment, and massive audience goodwill. Think about how long it took to build that emotional attachment. Audiences walked into the theater already deeply, profoundly invested in those legacy figures. The secrecy didn't have to somehow create love out of thin air. It simply amplified an affection that was already well established over 20 years of cinema. But look at our current situation with this movie. This new role must create immediate value on its own terms, without relying on any nostalgia whatsoever. Because this actress is playing someone entirely new to the audience, she is stepping onto a massively uneven playing field. If her reveal is modest compared to the universe-altering expectations that the internet has built up, severe disappointment is pretty much inevitable. And I want to highlight the real tragedy of this marketing tactic. It places intensely unfair pressure on a performer. This new actress ends up being evaluated by the audience based on a wildly inaccurate, imaginary metric that we made up, rather than the actual, well-written script she was given to perform. I absolutely love this analogy. Pressure cookers only work when the release is perfectly timed. Think about how a literal pressure cooker functions on your stove. The longer the studio leaves this mystery unattended, the more the pressure itself becomes the actual story. Every single week that goes by without a full trailer acts as a turned-up dial on that stove. Every blurry, pixelated, leaked set photo tightens the seal. And eventually, the final film is forced to be judged against countless imagined masterpieces. Those imagined flawless movies playing in the fans' heads become this unbeatable ghost that the real, physical movie has to fight against on opening weekend. Let's ground this again in Section 5, returning to the protagonist, and getting back to basics. Whenever excitement reaches these extreme fever pitch levels, I always force myself to step back to the absolute fundamentals of storytelling. We have to look at the script and ask, what is the movie actually about? What emotional experience is it trying to create for us? I believe the strongest clue isn't hidden in old comic books, release schedules, or internet leaks. It's the simple fact that in a grounded story, the secret character's true purpose is probably just to influence our hero's personal growth. And what does that actually look like? Well, it means she might challenge his morals. She might provide a vital piece of emotional support when he hits rock bottom. Structurally speaking, walking an audience through a deeply emotional, character-building dynamic is inherently better storytelling than dropping in a brief cosmic cameo just for the shock value. And this brilliantly illustrates a core truth of analyzing movies. The loudest theory is frequently the least compatible with the narrative. Let's dissect exactly why that is. Internet algorithms are literally designed to reward the most outlandish, high-stakes theories with views, clicks, and engagement. This entire ecosystem promotes theories that are entirely divorced from basic screenwriting logic. It's so crucial to understand that simple, meaningful choices and real emotional consequences are far, far better for a character-driven story than gigantic, continuity-breaking revelations. Excitement prefers huge possibilities, sure, but good stories, the ones that actually endure for decades, prefer meaningful, grounded choices. Let's test this structurally. Let's do a little Jenga test on the script. Remove the mystery character, and the movie still exists. It might be slightly different, but it stands. Now remove the hero, and the entire structure completely collapses. This architectural distinction tells us absolutely everything we need to know. The marketing desperately needs to pivot back to the protagonist, so we can walk into the theater invested in the hero first and foremost. I'll say this emphatically. If a supporting character's secret identity is the only reason you're buying a ticket, the movie has already failed fundamentally. The mystery should just be an interesting, decorative piece of a much larger, sturdier story, not the foundation that the entire project stands on. Which leaves me with this final provocative thought to hang on to as we wrap up. Has the studio accidentally created expectations that no answer can truly satisfy? Think about it. The real danger here isn't that the hidden character will be badly written. The real danger is that they will simply be normal. If we spend months and months expecting massive fireworks and a universe-shattering crossover event, a perfectly good, emotionally effective hero's journey risks being viewed as nothing more than a failed guessing game. Let's make sure we're actually walking into the theater ready to watch a movie and not just waiting to open a mystery box.